Where we go over to the Waitrose canopy and wait there. And can you just check that your phones are off, please? Or put to silent. So welcome to this meeting of the Area Planning Committee Southern. And let's move straight to the agenda. The first one is the minutes, to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of May to be laid on the table half an hour before the meeting. Have you all had a chance to look at those? Do you agree that I may sign them as a correct record? Agree. You may smile, but somebody at Western actually queried them last time and we had to delay while he read them. Do we have any apologies for absence?
We have apologies from councillors Peter Ishwood, Robert Knowles, Christian Hesser and David Round. Thank you.
And any disclosures of interest other than the usual town council planning? Are there any questions from members of the public, Emma?
None received, Chairman.
Peter, any relevant updates to the government guidance that you wish to share with us?
Apology. No, thank you, Chairman.
So we move straight on then to the applications for planning permission. Should there be any site inspections arising for this meeting, which I think would be rather surprising, but should there be, they will take place on the 4th of July. So moving on then straight away to the applications. So the first application, the only application, is B1, WA 2017-0746, Lander, Woodside Road in Chiddingfold. And I think it's Louise who's going to introduce this for us.
Thank you, Chairman. This is for the erection of a single-storey extension and alterations. The site is located on the south-eastern side of Woodside Road, which is on the corner with Ash Vale. The site is currently occupied by a two-storey detached dwelling, and land levels on the site slope down to the north. The surrounding area is residential in character. This photograph on the top left shows the front of the application property. The second photo on the bottom right is taken from Ash Vale, showing the side of the property. These two photos here are both taken from the rear of the property, the first one on the left being taken from within the site's garden, and the second one being taken from Ash Vale. The proposal is for a single-storey side and rear extension and for the enlargement of the existing porch at the front of the property. The side and rear extension would have a maximum depth of 8.61 metres, extending a further 1.1 metres with a covered canopy at the rear. It would have a maximum width at the rear of 7.2 metres. The porch extension would have a depth of 0.9 metres and a width of 2.4 metres. The porch at the front of the property here would have a pitched roof with a maximum height of 3.9 metres. And the single-storey side and rear extension would have a flat roof with a height of 3 metres. The single-storey side and rear extension will be faced with timber cladding with a metal surround. The existing property would be rendered with an off-white render, and timber cladding would be added to the first floor at the rear, wrapping round onto part of the side elevations. The red interlocking clay roof tiles would be painted grey. Many of the windows would also be replaced, and the building would appear more modern in appearance than the existing dwelling. In conclusion, officers consider that the extensions and additions would appear acceptable and that there would be no harmful impacts on the amenities of adjoining occupiers. The matters of principal and technical opinion are access and parking, impact on the ancient woodland, impact on the SPAs and biodiversity, and the matters for members' judgment this evening are the impact on the greenbelt, the impact on visual amenity, the AONB and AGLV, and the impact on residential amenity. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Louise. Just before I take the contribution to the members, I should really have introduced all the officers for the benefit of the webcast. We have, of course, Dan Lucas right there for legal matters, Peter Cleveland, head of DC, and Louise, and I wrote down her title. She is the team leader for the Western area. think that's the first time I've ever got it right. So welcome, team leader, Western Area team leader. So over to you, members. Right. I think I saw Councillor Inchbald before I started talking, so I'll take him first.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, this is, of course, within my ward, and I know it very well. In fact, I stuffed something through the letterbox there only this morning, so I have made a site visit. It does seem to me, I do struggle, I must say, to agree that there are, overwhelming, very special circumstances. I didn't follow that argument at all. But with all that said, this is in amongst a lot of other houses. It's a pretty built-up area. So the relevance of the AONB and AGLV and Green Belt, it seems to me, is really rather limited. And I know that the parish council are not keen on the actual appearance of it, but I must say, although I don't really like it that much, it is acceptable. And to be honest, I think that there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't go with the officer's recommendation here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mulliner?
Thank you, Chairman. Don't we have, leaving aside Green Belt and A and B considerations, which, as I agree with Councillor Inchbald, don't really seem to be terribly relevant in a residential area, don't we have rules about how much you can expand a dwelling by, which apply irrespective of whether the Green Belt's involved?
Louise?
Thank you. We do have rules in relation to the countryside and the Green Belt, but those are outside of the settlements, and this is within the rural settlement.
No, sorry, I'm talking about if you want to expand your house, you can't do it indefinitely. What are our basic rules about that? Can you remind me, please?
No, you can extend as much as you like, providing it's acceptable in terms of all the material considerations. Are you referring to permitted development?
Permitted development. I mean, we do have some sort of criteria by which we say, look, you can have one extension or two, but they mustn't expand the original footprint by more. I thought it was 40%.
Yeah, that's only outside of a settlement. So because this is in a settlement, that policy doesn't apply. So that's policy RD2, which doesn't apply to this particular area.
So basically, inside the settlement, you can expand as much as the local authority will let you get away with.
Precisely.
So it's a matter of judgment.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, my feeling is that having looked at other matters where very special circumstances were argued over very intensively indeed, the argument here, I mean, it just doesn't begin to amount to an argument. All it's really saying is that Greenbelt really shouldn't be an issue here, therefore we're going to ignore it. And if we can be honest about that, I don't really have a problem. But it does worry me if this sort of case were used as any sort of precedent for basically watering down very special circumstances in a case where they really matter. Because I don't think you have made out very special circumstances. This is simply a perfectly reasonable house owner wanting to expand his house, as many do, as I have done myself in the past. But to use the phrase "very special circumstances" simply because it doesn't really fit, leaves me feeling a bit uncomfortable. So, with the caveat that I hope we're never going to see this sort of argument used where it really matters. I'm happy not to be an objector to this particular application.
Thank you. Can I just take that from ask Peter just for clarification on that? Because we had this fairly recently about very special circumstances. I mean, is there a better way of putting the case when we're actually doing something which is technically out with, contrary to policy?
Thank you, Chairman. It is difficult because the paragraph 89, which we take appropriate development from in Greenbelt, talks about proportionate extensions being acceptable. And because this property has been extended before, over and above that, it is a disproportionate addition above the existing property or the original property prior to it being extended. So you do need to take that point. But and then if something's not proportionate, you're automatically required by policy to then consider very special circumstances. And I can assure you that in this case, it's applied in this way because that's the only appropriate policy approach to take, because that's what's required. But it will not set a precedent going forward, and it will not impact on how we apply it. But we do have to set out the case in that way, unfortunately, Chairman. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Edwards, I've got you, Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't think there are very special circumstances here. I think the development does not add to the street scene in any form whatsoever. It's a flat roof extension and it is an inappropriate development. It is ugly. Ugly, ugly, ugly. Chiddingfold is a lovely village and we should be looking to enhance the build form in the village, not put up this breeze block extension or whatever it is. You know, it is absolutely awful and I'm sorry I can't support it. Thank you.
Councillor Adams.
I think perhaps one of the very special circumstances in this particular case is that we've already announced that we're removing the green belt from within the settlement area of Chiddingfold. So, I mean, it could be that could be taken into account, I would think. I tend to agree with Councillor Edwards over the look. I think it is pretty awful and pretty basic, but I'll leave that up to my colleagues from Chiddingfold to see whether it's acceptable or not.
I think we all have our likes and dislikes. It's just whether we can refuse any planning application on them, isn't it? Does anybody else want to... I just want to see if anybody else wants to speak first before I take you for the second time. Okay, Councillor Mulliner.
Thank you very much. Well, this gets into what I was into. How do we judge this extension was disproportionate? You've just told me there are no real rules on it, so I'd love to know what is the criterion by which you decided that this particular size of extension was actually disproportionate and hence triggered the need to find very special circumstances. I'd like to be educated, please.
It's a matter of judgment, but if I can just point out where the original dwelling is, which is here, it has been extended quite significantly to the side, almost doubling the size of the property. So in that respect, we do consider that with this addition that wraps round, in combination with that existing extension, that it is disproportionate. But it is a matter of judgment for officers and for members to make themselves.
I'm puzzled that you've now made out a very good case why we should not be approving this. Why are you recommending it? If it's disproportionate, and as some of my colleagues think a bit ugly, and we're meant to be concerned about design, residential amenity and the look and feel of places, why on earth are you recommending it?
Because the Greenbelt seeks to protect the open character of the Greenbelt, and in this instance it's a small, in terms of height, it's only single storey. It's seen within the context of all the built form within the rural settlement, so the actual harm to the open character of the Greenbelt is considered to be minimal. So that is what contributes to the very special circumstance.
I'll put it another way. If Greenbelt AONB AGLV were not an issue at all, is this a sort of application you would be recommending as a positive contribution to the street scene?
Overall, yes. We think that the design of the extension is acceptable, regardless of its location.
I think this is a debate that we could have in another meeting, but could I just take us back to the street scene, Louise? Can we just see what's... Because I think when you see it in the street scene, you've got, to me, a better idea of what it's fitting in with, as much as whether you like it or not. Councillor Inchbald?
Yes, could I just ask, Louise, to the left of the property as we look at it, there is a large shrub is that going to remain there? Because if it is, it screens it very well.
That hasn't been set out in the proposal, so it may remain or it may not. But the extension itself is set back from that front wall.
Well, it does occur to me that if it stays there, that does screen it very well. And walking along Ash Vale, the fence is high enough to screen most of it, so it's not actually going to be that obvious.
Right, if nobody's got any new points, shall we move to the recommendation? We didn't actually look at the update sheet, did we? Was there anything you want to add before I move to the recommendation?
Chairman, I see that Chiddingfold is now a town, according to... I'm very worried about that.
We haven't told you about the extra 1,200 homes that are coming next week, have we?
Well, I did recently refer to, in front of the 3 town mayors and Cranley, that I referred to Cranley as the Metropolitan District of Cranley.
Gosh, we'll have war in the borough here, won't we? Louise, before I put the recommendation, do you wish to make any further comment to the, on the update sheet?
Yes, apologies for that. Obviously, Chiddingfold is a parish council, and just to draw your attention to the response that we did receive from Chiddingfold Parish Council objecting to the slab-sided flat-roofed extension, which they consider would detract from the street scene. Thank you.
So the recommendation is a revised recommendation as on the update sheet, that permission be granted subject to conditions 1 and 2 and informatives 1 to 5 as set out in the agenda report. Can I see all those?
Chairman, I mean, is it too late to suggest a condition to basically maintain the screening to Ash Vale?
It's probably technically too late, but I mean, we've got plenty of time, so let's have a look at this. Well, I missed what you actually said.
I was picking up on a point made by my learned colleague to my right, Councillor Piper, that the sideways view from Ash Vale is currently screened very effectively by a high hedge, and if that was maintained, it would greatly reduce the impact. And can we therefore put a condition requiring adequate screening?
I would have thought not, but Louise will be the expert on this.
It wouldn't be reasonable to require that to be maintained in perpetuity. If members particularly wanted some landscaping there and felt it was necessary for the application to be acceptable, we could put on a condition to recommend a landscaping scheme is submitted and approved to us. But again, we couldn't require that is retained in perpetuity, as that wouldn't be a reasonable requirement on the applicant.
Dan, are you wanting to contribute?
The simple point I was making is we don't know whether or not that's evergreen or deciduous. It may not be there during winter months. So for 6 months of the year, that actually may be bare twigs. So do bear that into the mix as well when you make your judgment.
I think what we're looking at in the bottom right picture is not a hedge, it's a fence, isn't it, Louise? And a big shrub on the right.
There is a shrub sort of that you can see in this photo from the front and here at the side, and then obviously the fence then runs along the boundary as well.
Well, any homeowner who took that fence down would, in my view, be a bit of a nutcase.
I think from what we're being told that it would be unreasonable to put a condition like that. We couldn't really put on a condition that's actually going to achieve anything. Is that really what the officers are saying? So I think we'll just have to take the recommendation as on the update sheet and work on the assumption that the neighbours are going to be good to each other. So the revised recommendation, which I've already put, can I just put it again to remind you? Permission be granted subject to conditions 1 and 2 and the informatives 1 to 5 as set out in your agenda report. Can I see all those in favour, please?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And those against the recommendation?
1.
And abstentions?
1.
Thank you very much. That concludes yet another very quick southern area. And I do apologise, Louise. Are you actually the team area for southern as well as western? I do apologise, I missed you off the southern. I'll get your entire title right one of these days. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks, everyone.